Hello, Elise. Thank you so much for joining
Hi.
me today. How are you?
Good.
All right, well, let's go ahead and dive right in. Tell me about the company you work for, Goop.
Yes. Where would you like me to start and what would you like to know?
Well, let's go ahead and just tell me this overall about the company. What is it
Okay.
that you guys do? Who do you serve?
So, when it got its start in 2008, it was a very simple newsletter, really
Okay.
like only a newsletter. I don't even think there was a website to archive the content that Gwyneth started at her in London with an assistant. And it was really sweet, simple, sometimes a recipe or two, sometimes an interview with someone, sometimes some travel recommendations. And the premise was just that she felt like she had access to all these incredible experts and people and sort of inside information. And she just wanted to share it with friends. And then it sort of became a thing and people who weren't her friends started subscribing, and she really kept it just sort of focused on the content for many years. It didn't make any, it wasn't she wasn't making any money. um, Ultimately she decided that she wanted to do something interesting in product, so she worked on these sort of collaborations with designers that were really kind of interesting. It would be either like the perfect white T-shirt, or like what's a travel jewelry case that's like chic enough but keeps your necklaces from not getting tangled. So just sort of
Got it.
identifying these like moments of white space. Um, and it's really grown. She moved from London to Los Angeles, which is when I joined, and at that point it was sort of like I want to turn this into a like I want to actually get really serious about this as a business. And we have stayed true to who we are, which is at our heart a content site, and then introduce product to sort of complete the cycle. So if we're talking about something, then it's like, oh, and you can hear like four variations of like this outfit, or here's how you can go and see this doctor, or travel guides that obviously you can just go out and book. So we sell some things we obviously just write about. But that's sort of the genesis, like a modern style brand for women. We have some men who love us too, but we're pretty much for women.
Right.
Trying to save women time, do the work for them, sort of like be like, here, if you're, I think for a lot of women who aren't, at least this has been I'll focus group of one. When I was in my early 20s, I was like, I'm going to try every food truck. Like, this
Got
is what I
it.
want to do. And now it's like, just tell me which one's amazing,
Yeah.
you know? So that's the work that we try to do. We're not encyclopedic. We're not trying to cover everything. We're just trying to cover the things that we think have the most value.
So, what would you say is a specific problem that you saw for the people you serve? Is it just kind of saving them time on the things that you feel that they most want to know?
Yeah, and I think a lot of what we do is sort of raise awareness around certain issues that we think that women want to know that they might not know. So, like one example would be, I think, our clean beauty selection.
Okay.
So, obviously, the last 10 years, really fewer, probably 5 years, people have started to. There's been a lot more publicity around the fact that there is no regulation of the personal care industry. The
Okay.
last piece of legislation was in 1938. It's one page. The FDA is empowered to regulate the personal care industry. So there are known carcinogens and endocrine disruptors in products, including baby shampoo. And so a lot of women, you just assume, right? Like you're like, they regulate everything. Of course, they must be regulating my deodorant, but they're not. So we've done a ton of content about it, sort of why these ingredients are problematic, potentially. A lot of that carcinogens at this point. And then we sell really clean beauty brands on the site, and we have a very rigorous ingredient screen. So
Got it.
we sort of do the work of going out and finding the best non-toxic deodorant, for example. We have our own skincare line, but it's just 5 products within like a much wider store. But the goal there is like, you can come to us, know that we've vetted every single product, both from like a safety and an efficacy and performance standpoint. And so it just saves you time. Like you don't have to sit there and like every single label. You can know that we're
And they can trust that you guys have done the work for them, which also makes it cool. Why is content, at the cornerstone of what you do and how you connect with your customers that you're serving?
Well, I think for one, it's sort of how the brand was started and how we have sort of maintained connections with readers over the years. And we still have a ton of people who read who don't shop, which is great. Like most of our content is completely free. It's recipes. It's, again, travel advice. It's not like there's no need to purchase anything. That's not the intent. Our wellness content, for example, is more, we interview really incredible doctors who are seeing really interesting things in their practices. And then you can sort of take that to your own primary care physician. But content really, it's the context, right? Like it's sort of everyone sort of wants to understand like why this product, why this thing, why this doctor. So storytelling is really important, even if it's not overt. It's sort of like, what's the story behind the creation of this product? Even if it's just the product caption, like that is important, I think, to most women to just sort of in a nutshell, like why this purse,
Right.
Why this pair of shoes. So that's really what we focused on is talking to our readers the way that we would talk to our smartest friends and giving them like all the context, all the information that they would need to feel like they were making a great decision or a great purchase.
Got it. And I like how you associate your readers, your customers, the people that you're serving as your friends, because that really kind of changes the relationship of what it is that you're able to deliver them, how you communicate, how you engage. Now, how do you use content to deliver a remarkable experience to your customers? Or is it just that level of intimacy that helps you do that?
I think it's that level of intimacy. I also think that we're not afraid to ask questions, and we certainly pay a lot of attention to things that that affect a lot of women profoundly, that have been sort of understudied or underexplored or underlooked at, primarily in the wellness space. So like whether we're sort of pounding our fists about postnatal depletion and the spectrum of postpartum depression and anxiety, and like how we under support mothers in our culture, or we are talking about autoimmune disease and how it affects 10 women to 1 man. But it's like they're chronic, they're not well understood, there's no cure. So like we turn over a lot of rocks and talk to as many people as we can, simply because there's not a lot of really amazing, accessible information. Like it's hard to understand scientific studies. It's hard, so we're trying to like, again, do that work and sort of communicate out at a level that everyone can understand, like, what to ask their doctor, what they might not be thinking, what they might be overlooking, et cetera.
Right. And how do you figure out how or what topics need to be covered? Because like you said, these are some very specific things. Some of them are topics that are more mainstream, and others are very specific for a specific particular group of women. So how do you determine which things to cover and which things should be getting your attention?
So and a lot of the stuff that we do is fun too. So there's that, but we'll we really lean on our physicians and some of the scientists that we work with to sort of point us towards things that they think are really important, or like a new study that might have come out that people need to know about. So we often look to them to sort of talk to us about what they're experiencing in their own practices. That's really how we developed our wellness protocols, as we worked with 4 doctors and sort of went to them to say, listen, tell us what you're seeing and what you quarterback and put together for people, because let's like create things that are real, and not just guess. And that's sort of why we speak to our friends, why we speak to readers the way that we speak to our friends, and the way that I think the site has sort of organically grown, I know like if 3 of my friends have Hashimoto's, like this is some of their friends probably have Hashimoto's too, for example. And so you can sort of like, it's like the waves of organic growth, and knowing that you're doing something that's gonna resonate rather than being like, hey, Jane, in Chicago. I'm going to guess that she is,
Right.
there's just, it's not, it lacks all the emotion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, how do you develop that level of intimacy so that the people that you are writing to are like your friends? Did it start with just literally they were your friends and it just kind of grown out and everybody's sort of become part of the family? Or how have you cultivated that over time?
I think that is exactly it. Like, I think like Gwyneth literally started this with the idea of doing it for her friends. Originally, she was just going to like upload these Excel documents in a pass protected wallet. This is in the early 2000s. So that was the idea. And then a lot of readers write to us, whether to ask Jean, our beauty director, a question, or just to, in general, be like, have you guys heard anything about like this complication with PCOS? And then we will try to either get that person an answer.
Right.
Or if we go to Dr. Nye, we're like, have you heard of this? And she's like, yes, I'm actually seeing a lot of it. And then we do a piece.
Got it.
So I think people feel that they have that intimacy and access, that we're listening. That's really, I think, one of the primary things that we do well is we listen. Like, we're sort of paying attention to what's happening there in conversation and addressing that, rather than just like, we're just going to do this and we're going to do that,
Right. How have you been able to maintain that level of intimacy over time as your company has grown? Because I imagine it was probably a little easier whenever it was just Gwyneth and then you've got maybe a few people and you're all closely connected. But your company has grown like tremendously over the past few years because in particular of your content. So how do you continue to maintain that culture that's so much in tune to your customers and treats them like friends so that you're able to continue more of what had made you successful along the way?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's in our hiring, and we have a very inclusive company culture. Like, we're 150 people now, but we also there's a lot of internal conversation, which I think helps. And then it allows us to sort of access new audiences, if that makes sense. Whether it's like, okay, we've hired some amazing 23-year-old editorial assistants. Let's like really talk to them about like, I'm not 23 anymore, unfortunately, but like what's happening in their lives, what's happening in the lives of their friends, et cetera. And I feel like we are starting to scale more in that way and look at different ways of distributing content to different audiences while still maintaining that intimacy. And I think as like the site, as we become able to use more personalization, not to be like, this is what you get, Sonia, but being able, knowing like, maybe you only look at gluten-free recipes. Maybe we know vaguely how old you are, what you might be going through in your life. Right. And that way we can sort of address you. Like, so you're like, I don't care about career stuff.
Right.
I don't have kids or whatever it is.
I love the idea of personalization for the website. So how have you been able to do that? Because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, we don't know how to do that. We don't know how to do that with a digital product, or we don't know how to do that when you're not interacting with people on a one-on-one basis. So was that something that was difficult to arrive at, to be able to come up with that sort of customized experience so that you get what you need when you need it?
So we're working on it. We have definitely not mastered it, but we have, what we have done is created sort of product and experiential products that are more specifically, so it's more of a self-selection. So it's like if you're into our wellness content, then you might come to our in-goop health wellness event. But sort of separating things out and knowing like, okay, we know sort of what our shoppers want. So maybe we're not going to send the people who are not shoppers our new fashion line. Okay. You know what I mean? Yes. So it's a little, at this point, less attuned. I think that like personalization can go a little too far at times, because then I personally am like, you don't know me, like you don't know what I'm not interested in. Right, so I think we can start, like, for example, thinking about Snapchat Discover as a new platform that we're on, being like, okay, let's do content for a younger demographic, because we know analytically that that's who we're speaking to. That's just as intelligent as this content that we're giving to like the 40-year-old woman, but that is more like applicable to your life when you're in college. So maybe it's like, what can you make in a microwave, but it's not like dumbed down content. you know?
Now, you mentioned that a lot of the culture with 150 people, that's definitely a sizable group of people. Are you hiring specifically to make sure that you're covering the women who cover both the demographic, the psychographic, the backgrounds of the women that you're serving, like whether they're younger, whether they're older at different stage in life?
It's not something, because it's funny because we're big, but each team is sort of small.
Okay.
So because we do so many different things like experiential or product development and fashion or whatever.
Right.
But I think that like within the content team, yes, we're sort of verticalized in terms of, we have our food team, we have our fashion team, et cetera. So we're hiring, like, what are we missing? Who are we not speaking to? Who, like, sort of trying to make sure that we have a really cohesive team that still obviously fits under the goop umbrella,
right,
but that we're not just hiring the same person over and over and over again.
Got it. No, that makes sense. Now, you mentioned that you're doing a lot of experiential things. Can you talk a little bit more about what that looks like?
Yeah, so we just did our second Goop Health Wellness Summit in New York in January. We have another one coming up in June. We're working on some dinner series. We're working on a retreat. We're working on what are some of the other, like, as sort of, what does fitness for us look like if we could do some sort of community event. We're doing a lot more programming at our store in Brentwood, so just small, like, open to whomever wants to come, Q&As with doctors, cooking demonstrations, like Earth Day events, just like fun,
right,
sort of unexpected moments there. We have a series of pop-up shops coming. We're doing one in Dallas, and so
cool.
we try to program those in the same way so that people can come and just have a drink and listen to an interesting conversation. And it's nice. That's like a great way to get to know sort of people who are interested in the site and to get sort of firsthand information, things that are resonant for them or coming up for them.
So it sounds like the experiential aspect of it, one, helps you reach new people and develop a deeper degree of intimacy, which helps you then kind of in turn produce more content that is much more relevant to the people that you're serving. So it's kind of cyclical and fully integrated. That's cool.
Yeah. Like if you go to an event and you're like, I did a Q&A with this nutritionist and everyone really wanted to talk about like size inclusivity and like Instagram and that's like really good for us to know that. I mean, obviously we're aware of that as like a thing, but particularly where we can control in our own product line, like we can control the sample sizes and sort of what we're shooting to be like, okay, let's be even more like we pushed it farther with sport line where we were like, let's get like real fitness, not just like not like yoga fitness models. Let's get like real fitness models who have like thighs and, like, let's do it. That's, people want to see it. So it's stuff like that too, that also helps us, it just makes you aware of some of your blind spots or the things that you might not be paying attention to.
For sure. This has been super cool. What can we expect to see from you guys in the future?
We just launched a podcast 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
I think that it's a really fun format for us, and that's been really exciting to see how receptive people have been to that. And it opens up like the question of what could we do within sort of audio that could be cool, particularly with some of the doctors and experts who we have access to. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see more from us there. We just hired a head of video. So I think you'll see, we've dabbled, but I think you'll see more from us in the video space. We have our, new products. I mean, that's one of the things that we're really focused on as a company, sort of outside of the content team, obviously, but like interesting products that you would sort of only expect Goop to make.
Right, right. What was the impetus for branching out into these new mediums for podcasting and video? Because I know they've been around for a while. More people are starting to go all in, but I know you said it all started with like written content. So was there any reason in particular that you decided to branch out?
It's just been a long time coming. We've talked about it for years. And then I think I don't think GP had been listening to a lot. And then she did a couple and was, oh my God, wait. I love this.
Got it.
So I think that was sort of the tipping point of her to be like, I'm into it. Let's like actually do it. And I think in that it's and we've gotten a lot of emails about it. They're like, I have a long commute. I would love to like listen to a variation of this through audio. So which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So that customer intimacy goes there along with it too. Like a lot of times your customers are telling you what they want and it's just a matter of giving it to them.
Listening. I know. Exactly. So, but yeah, so we just needed to prioritize it.
Sweet. Any parting words of wisdom for business leaders who want to use content as a way to deliver remarkable experiences to their customers?
Yeah, I think that it is. I think content, my word of advice would be not to under invest in the quality of the content creator. I think that content in of itself does not need to be expensive, but that you should hire, there are a lot of incredible journalists and writers and service journalists out there. So instead of just, asking an intern to do it, if you want someone to spend the time to read it, make sure it's worth reading.
Right.
And invest in high quality content teams. There is an art to it. There is, don't just slap stuff on the web and hope that the SEO algorithm takes care of you. Create something that's worth reading.
Yeah. Very good point. And I think a lot of time they're like, okay, content. Yeah. I get it. But they don't necessarily recognize the craft associated with it. So yeah.
Yeah. And it takes time. You can't, it's not just a sit down and slam 150 words on the page. What's the story?
Yeah.
So I think that's what I see is just people being like, it doesn't really, content is content. We'll just make content. It's no, make good content.
Right. You
don't have to you don't have to have elaborate photo shoots and you don't have to lose your shirt on that, but hire, be thoughtful about it.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you again, Elise.
Thank
This has been fantastic talking to you.
You too. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.